Officials are preparing for potential violence in the Capitol and nationwide after the leak of that Supreme Court draft opinion that would strike down Roe v. Wade after 50 years. Capitol Police are warning the far right is calling for violence against a religious group planning to rally for abortion rights.
All right, that was a CNN clip this morning talking about possible violent protests by, as you heard it, right-wing groups in response to the leaked Supreme Court opinion revealing a possible overturn of Roe v. Wade. Yet, these are the protests we know about. Multiple protests are planned by left-leaning groups in the coming days, including one scheduled for next Wednesday called Ruth Senus, meaning Ruth Gator Ginsburg Senus, that involves targeting the homes of conservative Supreme Court justices. And we have up on the big board some of the other protests that are planned over the next week, all of which by left-leaning groups. I don't know, Tony. I have yet to hear of a single right-wing activist who is threatening even violence, much less really talking about this as something that they're going to protest. I don't get it.
Jim Sciutto's a fool. I think that's how I pronounce his last name. At this moment, he doesn't even deserve that level of respect. That was a lie that was just told by a cable news outlet. It is not the political right that is trying to bring about violence. It is, hey, here are the addresses of these Supreme Court justices. That's about bringing up violence. It's people like Representative Pramila Jayapal actually saying that the Supreme Court has no right to do this. Now, they haven't done anything yet. This was a leaked first draft of Justice Samuel Alito. Nothing's been done. But to say that the Supreme Court doesn't have the right to overturn anything, man, that is a radical position. The fences are not going up because of the political right. That's another great lie.
I was going to say, I watched a lot of videos of the protests over the past couple of days. People obviously have a right to protest in front of the Supreme Court. Go for it. But at least all the ones who seemed really angry, and as I've watched the coverage of this and talked to people, I don't see anybody on the right angry. It's not like the Proud Boys are threatening to come ransack the Supreme Court.
But I should be clear. I think there is an anger. What it really is a disgust. You can have a leak like this happen, and the president of the United States...
I understand the leak thing, but there's a disgust with that somebody leaked this, but I don't think that's going to cause any violence, do you?
But that's exactly where I'm going. The disgust is the fact that the entirety of the Democratic Party isn't saying this isn't who we are. The executive and the legislative branch actually threatening the judicial branch isn't who we are. We're supposed to be opposed to these kinds of insurrection-y kind of things.
Yeah.
People actually engaged in violence. What we saw in Los Angeles was all the political left. They own this, and what they're trying to do in response to this first draft is equally despicable.
Well, you make a really good point in that CNN was talking about possible violent protest. There actually was a lot of violence in Los Angeles over this. CNN somehow was not really all that concerned about it in that segment. A number of police officers.
Buildings can be on fire, and it's a mostly peaceful protest.
Yeah, we learned that 2 years ago. This is what really concerned me the most, was this idea of going to justices' homes, which, we've seen this before, of the Occupy Mitch McConnell house and beating drums outside Ted Cruz's home and the like. And then this from Jen Psaki about those plans. Take a listen.
Some of these justices have young kids. Their neighbors are not all public figures. These activists posted a map with the home addresses of the Supreme Court justices. Is that the kind of thing this president wants to help your side make their point?
I don't have an official U.S. government position on where people protest.
I almost can't...
It's a level of unseriousness that can only come from somebody who's waiting for her MSNBC job. You, of course, have a position on this, and the position is it's wrong. There is no other position to take on this. You're trying to threaten judges, justices, to do your bidding. That's banana republic stuff. That isn't America stuff. If you want to argue that January 6th was an insurrection, which it wasn't, but it was a riot, and the riot was wrong, and you want to argue that this is just normal things, and after all, people are upset and they're just letting their voice be heard.
You said something
that's maddening nonsense.
You said something that was really interesting when you said unserious. And what I'm trying to understand is that the Democrats want to run against President Trump in 2024. 22. They think that if he is on the ballot, or if they can effectively put him on the ballot and tie candidates to him, then that'll motivate their base. How do you maintain the moral high ground by saying we're not Trump and look at what Trump is doing when you're advocating the very same kinds of tactics that they say Trump allows and encourages?
So this gets into the idea of people who think they are good and moral and decent because they hold these certain positions, and anybody who disagrees with them is clearly the enemy, or you have to dehumanize them, etc. Remember that they so believe that abortion is sacrosanct, right? The Second Amendment, which is an amendment, is up for debate, but abortion, which doesn't exist in the Constitution, which is so much of this conversation has been for 50 years.
There's one thing I got to get to.
Is of course religion. They so believe it as
right. The ends
religion.
justify the means. I got 30 seconds. I got to get to this.
Go.
Donald Trump took credit for many things that he didn't do, and he took credit for everything that he could possibly take credit for, including but not limited to the sun coming out as he gave his inauguration speech. Yet we have yet to see him take a victory lap on the single greatest campaign promise and achievement that he has delivered on, which is Roe effectively being overturned. Why has no Republican taken a victory lap? What's the calculus?
The decision is not made yet.
Yeah, I know. I know it's not been made, but that never stopped President Trump before. Come on.
It matters. This is about trying to move the justices in another direction. Wait till it's done, then say your thing. This is about having patience. This is about control. This is about not letting the enemy know what you're going to do, right? Remember, this is about the families. Never talk your business in front of one of the other families. What are you, out of your mind? You keep your cool. Come on, Sonny.
Somehow President Trump has found that religion. Tony, it's good to see you. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.